Hi, everyone, just arriving. Just wanted to welcome you, let you know we'll get started in just a minute. Welcome, welcome, everyone. I know we're starting to gather a nice crew together. We'll get started when we get a good audience coming in. Everyone's just getting signed on. So thank you for waiting. While we wait, hopefully everyone's comfortable and ready to hear from amazing artists and their time at Caldera. So get settled in. Yay, I'm seeing people I know. Hi, everyone. So glad everyone could join in. Well, I'm going to get started in just a second. Great. Well, thank you all for your patience as we waited for people to get into the audience, our Zoom audience these days. So welcome. Welcome to tonight's AiR program. So this is the first of two virtual events featuring Caldera's 2021 Artists in Residence. Because our in-person open studios couldn't happen this year, we're hosting this virtual event for the first time, so bear with us. My name's Katie Wisdom Weinstein, and I'm Caldera's Executive Director. It's great to see some familiar names and new ones. I hope people will keep trickling in. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, our new Zoom format. Before we get started, I wanted to share Caldera's land acknowledgement. We're all coming from different parts of the country for the most part. We honor the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and their traditional territories. We recognize that we are on the original lands of several tribal groups. This acknowledgement is a first step in contributing to more awareness of the presence and resilience of Native peoples. Thank you. And because we're tuning in from all over the place, please visit native-land.ca to find out more about the land you occupy. So, welcome to those of you who are new to Caldera Arts. We're a 25-year-old nonprofit organization operating in both Portland and Central Oregon. We partner with youth and artists to build transformative art and environmental programs that drive cultural and social change. And we do this through mentorships, workshops, intensives, and summer camp programming for middle and high school aged youth, and residencies for adult artists. Tonight, we're highlighting Caldera's Residency Program, and particularly our Artists in Residence program, which takes place annually at our Art Center on Blue Lake, just outside of Sister Sophia. Caldera's Residency Program supports our organizational belief in the transformational power of creativity. We believe artists are powerful change makers, yet too many are held back by unjust systems of power and inequitable resource distribution. Caldera prioritizes serving artists who have been most impacted by injustice and oppression, with a focus on artists of color. Our residencies are important to artists because they provide essential, often difficult to access support to those who have found residencies unwelcoming or inaccessible in the past. So we provide a space for artists to create, connect, and even heal within a community that centers their needs and experiences. If you're interested in learning more, please feel free to contact us or sign up for our newsletter. Our 2022 AiR application is up on our website now and open through June 25th, so please apply. You can also visit our website at calderaarts.org/AiR to apply, learn more about our other programs, sign up for our newsletter, and if you're able, donate and help us continue all this incredible work that our staff, youth, and artists do together. So a little overview. The Artists in Residence program provides time and space for artists in all disciplines for 2 to 3.5 weeks during the winter months. Caldera's AiR program includes a stipend, studio, and living space, and we can provide accommodations for families. So for more information on those details, you can email us at AiR@calderaarts.org. And now I want to introduce you to Caldera's Madeline Wilhite to get the program started and to thank her for putting together this AiR Share event, our first time. So over to you, Madeline. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Madeline, and I am Caldera's Special Events and Partnerships Manager. A little bit about what to expect tonight. During their residencies at the Arts Center, artists participate in what we call AiR Share, an informal evening where artists can share their work with their peers. We're recreating this experience here for you tonight. So each artist will talk about their creative journeys, artistic practice, and work for about 10 minutes, and we'll open the floor for questions for about 5 minutes after each presentation. And we are recording this program so we can share it after tonight's event. We'd also love to hear from you, so please jump in the chat and say hello or use the Q&A function to ask questions during the presentations. Okay, so first up, we will hear from Devonte Pearson and James Pakootas, members of DCM Collective, a group based out of Spokane, Washington that works with artists and producers across the nation. The collective is a dynamic group of award-winning artists, musicians, and producers that came together to empower our youth through various workshops with nonprofits and schools across the region. Their mission is focused on prevention and rehabilitation in our public school systems, and they specialize in community engagement with our youth. The collective creates music that empowers each of its listeners to define their own happiness and chase their own dreams, with reminders of centering ourselves and enjoyment throughout this process of self-expression. So passing it over to James and Devonte. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tichas Kanchkich, Kwalamnam Tiatukucha, Mr. Kanchuk James Pakootas. I come from the Colville Confederated Tribes, right there in north central Washington, but I'm calling in right now from which is occupied space of the Osage Nation in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'll let Devonte introduce himself.
Yeah, my name is Devonte. My stage name, artist name is TS The Solution. TS is who I am. The solution is who I want to be. My time at Caldera was mainly focused around being around the guys that we make music with, the guys that we make moves with. And our thing is always to inspire while aspiring to be more for the communities that we come from. Obviously, the communities that we do come from are really underserved. I never knew life like a residency and all these things, the building that we were in and making art in even existed. I'm still new to this world. So a lot of kids back home have no idea about opportunities like this. So being able to be in that space and being able to share our experiences via social media empowers so many youth. Me and James both constantly get contacted from the youth all the time. And it's about their stories, but also to thank us for showing them parts of life that they don't know. They don't know anything about this. So thank you guys for having us. And it was definitely life-changing, to say the least.
Yeah, and I'll agree with you, because I'm gonna show you guys a video clip to start, but we videoed a lot of different things while we were there, whether there were writing sessions, recording sessions, but TS and I both have this deep passion for our youth. So we definitely took the nail on the head and really went forth and tried to develop some programming to connect with our youth while we were at Caldera. And it's the same as we are tonight, that, you know, with this global pandemic, we had to do it virtually. So it was like really unique to start presenting workshops in a way that keeps our youth engaged. So I'll show like a 6 or 7 minute clip on just that little bit of different processes we had with our youth. And it's both TS and I kind of explaining our creative process and how do we go about developing content, whether it be beat production or writing lyrics or poetry. We wanted to share with our youth a few different processes that may connect with them so they can find a way, even if it's journaling, even if it's not art related. There are processes that we go through that can help organize our thoughts, organize our feelings, organize our emotions, and be able to put them down in a way to express ourselves. So I'll show that right now. And let's see, share my screen, optimize for video. If you can put in the chat when we're here, if it's really choppy and whatnot, I'm not directly hooked into the Ethernet, and I just sent TS the file as well. So if there is an issue, I don't think there will be. I've got pretty fast internet, but if there is, please put it into the chat, and then we'll reload it up from TS's computer. So one sec here. So we have different. And then it goes on the other screen. Can you believe that? Here we go. Minimize, bring it over. Can everybody see what's on the screen? Please put in the chat if you can. I can't see your faces while I'm sharing. So we have different creative processes, and this week we'll go through my creative process, and both of us are led differently, I think, in our lives as well. Like me, I'm very, very emotional based. Like if my emotions aren't in something, and it's really hard for me to complete a task. You know, if I don't believe it in my heart, or if it's a project where I'm not emotionally involved, I feel like my creativity suffers because of that. I'm a very emotionally charged person. I understand my emotions really deeply, but I also feel really deeply too. So while it's kind of it's a teeter-totter for me, you know, it's not that people say the saying is it's a gift and a curse, right? It's not a curse for me at all, but the feeling of that depth and intensity is what I really like to tap into before I write. But in that process, sometimes I get swept away in that emotion because I'm going so deep into it, like trying to write songs about being abused or about losing my father or like all of these things. It comes across in songs really good because you can hear the emotion in my voice. You know, it's a real subject and it comes across. But to tap into that energy, to write that, you know, the process of getting there, getting the words onto the paper, can sometimes be really intense for me, you know. And I know when it's getting really intense for me, because whether it's excitement or it's sadness or it's inspiration or it's depression and anxiety, these emotions I'm tapping into when I'm writing, I'll know because I'll want to walk away. Like I'll be 5 minutes in and then I'll want to, I'm excited about maybe something I wrote, and I'll want to walk away, you know, like instantly, like just in the excitement of the moment. And that's when, like, at least I have that awareness now to where I can go, oh no, tap in, stay in it, stay here. You know, you're where you want to be. It's where
It's where I'm trying to get to so that I can write a more powerful message, you know? So my creative process is a very emotional process. And we're gonna go on that today, of how to, you know, deepen your understanding of your own emotions, and how to get those emotions down on paper so maybe you can understand them a little bit better, you know? Want to give them a little bit of your creative?
Yeah, I love that Epic is very emotional, because I'm emotional too. I'm a Cancer, and we have been known to be emotional creatures. My process comes from a place of confidence. So a lot of the times, any record that I get, whether it be an emotional record, whether it be a happy record, whether it be whatever type of vibe, I wanted to come across confident, because those are the type of artists that I listen to. The type of artists that I listen to are completely aware of who they are as a person, and completely aware of their attributes, completely aware of where they come from, and completely aware of the message that they want to get across. So when I start a record, I have to make sure that I'm confident. If there's something going on in my life to where I'm questioning things, it's really hard to get creative. And if I do write something down, I'm not confident about it, so I don't put it out, or I don't continue to do it. So yeah, I start with, I'm very confident based when it comes to my approach.
I got a question off of that. The artists that you look into that are very, have a deep awareness of who they are and their place in the world and their place in the industry, who are some of those artists that you gravitate towards to maybe give us a sneak peek of maybe we can go listen and get some of that inspiration as well?
He knows this, because I listen to probably like the same 5 rappers. But Nipsey Hussle is my top artist, because again, he comes from the background of gang culture, but his music isn't centered around it. We like to call that, we put candy in the medicine, I think is what it's called. So in his music, he'll sprinkle a little bit about economics. He'll sprinkle a little bit about real estate and business ventures. And he'll say something like close in escrow, which will make me want to look up, what is escrow? Like, what does that even mean? Or, you know, things like that. Or he'll say something about Dr. Sebi. Like, who is Dr. Sebi? And it makes you want to look that person up.
Vertical integration.
What is vertical integration? These are things that artists say that makes me want to like look into it, and come to find out it's something about business, it's something about real estate, and these ventures outside of music that they do. Another artist is Mick Jenkins. He's very articulate.
Yes.
And a lot of his message is love, like spread love, but the way his cadence is, the way he bounced in and out of the record shows confidence. You gotta be confident to do that type of stuff.
What I like about Mick is that a lot of his tracks and stuff have some jazz elements in it. I feel like he's got this kind of like scat sort of jazz foundation with his rap even. And I even feel like hip hop in some ways like played off of scat way back in the day. It was like jazz was rap, you know, you get on and you improv, you know, whatever you're doing with your vocals and doing it in a very freestyle kind of way is very hip hop, you know. So that's what I really appreciate about him, is they're very rooted in like the foundations, you know.
Yeah. And more mainstream artists will be J. Cole, Big Sean, and Kendrick Lamar, Big Crit, just to name a few. Those are fire.
So yeah, that was just one of our sessions. We held 3 sessions with our youth, 2 hours, or was it 3 hours? 3 hours each Saturday that we were there. And that was our first Saturday we were there, just teaching them a little bit about who influences us, and why we're influenced by these artists. It's deeper than just music for us. And we wanted them to get that same kind of feel that, you know, be careful what you're putting into your ears and what you're ingesting. There's purpose behind all of it. And you can find a higher purpose in being selective, you know, with everything, especially music, especially art, because that speaks directly to our soul. So, Devonte, did you want to?
Yeah,
Something?
yeah, I wanted to, hopefully we have time. Please let me know if we're cutting a little long. I just wanted to share just a little bit of a record that we started while we were out there. I'm going to show the session here.
So this summer, we're going to be shooting a musical called Root. Be a fashion show, hip hop, storytelling extravaganza in partnership with Neotero and Salmon Defense Fund, Evergreen State College, some of these big partnerships that we're developing. And this is going to be one of the soundtrack pieces to this film. So
I'm gonna cut it a little closer. Just gonna show off 2 verses in the chorus for it. And yeah,
take about a minute or so.
Yeah, just give me a quick thumbs up if you can hear it before.
It's a little.
Yeah. Take a look at my problems, I sum up to the heart of my soul, let the fight erupt. Better stand tall, we can rise above. You wanna chop my stuff, you ain't got enough. You ain't got enough. You pop in a pack of lips, like a sushi roll and a roll, then up that food for thought and a order up. Me and Plain Jane ain't the same. I define fly like my veins full of planes. Recognize mine through the time full of rain. Show the world I had a campaign through the pain. Deep breath, beat death for the day. Throw shade on my shade, no way. Big fist, I put it to deep space. Hear the sounds of the drums, and be sure to keep pace. Different time, I choose different. This is the mission that I've been given. I know I'm different. Yeah, I know I'm different. It's for my people, it's for my equals. Working so evil, yeah, we stay peaceful. Yes, we move different. Yes, we move different.
Damn, we can only hear the secondary like coming straight out of the speakers. It wasn't coming straight from the interface. So it was a little muddled. Yeah.
What? I checked it earlier
I
on.
don't know what was going on.
Yeah, we checked it
That
earlier.
makes it so much cleaner. I was like, oh, we're hearing the feedback. So
Oh, okay.
it's all right though.
Yeah,
You can still hear it.
But yeah, that record was really derived from a place of what we were calling celebration of life, who we are as a people. Just a little bit of background from each and every one of us. Speaking for myself, a line like, what was it? A line like, throw shade on my shade, no way, and big fists are pointing in deep space, hear the sounds of the drums and be sure to keep pace, was just an acknowledgement of obviously who I am as a person and where I come from, and where this type of music comes from, the drums that you hear in that record. Or what about you, James? You got a line in there that has a deeper meaning that one may not catch.
I think like not specifically from my verse, but what you had written in the chorus, is like, we move different, tie my shoes different, like it's like when we were mixing this record and we were almost done with it, like I got some awesome scenes on film of like TS taking his headphones off and like just clapping. I'm way across the room. He's just like clapping. He's like, we're not thinking big enough. This is a Puma commercial. This is Nike. This is like everything. Like this connects all of us in one movement, in one song, in one rhythm. We can all identify with this. And I kind of feel like that hook that chorus, every time I hear it, speaks to my soul in that way. So good job on that, buddy. That was your writing. You're the guru. He's our guru, by the way. So
You as well, buddy.
yeah. So yeah, I guess we'll take questions, or if anybody.
Yeah, we have a couple minutes for questions before we move on. And also feel free to pop your questions in the Q&A as they come up, and we can always come back to them.
Yeah.
Oh, Stephanie has a question. Was there anything unexpected or surprising about working out at Caldera?
For me, yes.
Go ahead. I want to hear it.
For me, absolutely, unequivocally, yes. I got there because I even found out about Caldera because my partner, Mora, is an AiR resident from last year. And so I went to her open studios and dropped her off while she spent her 10 days there. And I came back and I got a business card. So I had already thought like, oh, I already know what this space, looks like, what it's going to be like. I've been making art in all sorts of different ways. So I figured I had a pulse on how it was going to be. And I got there, and you got to think we're in the middle of this global pandemic. I'm adjusting to pick up and move away from my family and everything. Like the day after I get back, I'm moving, right? So it's like I had to deal with all of these things and all of these things that we had to heal from, right? So I don't think I started really creating art until maybe the 9th or 10th day there, like really something I was proud of. So for me, the biggest thing that I had to learn along the way was that space is okay for me to heal in that moment. And that's okay. I don't have to worry about this output of art that needs to come from it. This residency was much more about each of us healing internally and healing as a collective. Because that's usually the vibe that we put out for other communities. We're usually the ones coming in the fire to stoke that fire in people's hearts wherever we're at, but never had the opportunity to do it for us. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I got there and I was like, this place is beautiful and amazing, and I had to breathe it all in, and I had to make sure that I wasn't taking it for granted. Because again, we don't come from anything like this. We don't see architecture like this. We don't see what these things are made out of. We look at the trees and we don't think that this is tucked in deep somewhere in the forest, So it took a long time for me. And I had my family with me. I had my fiance with me and I had my twins with me. So I had to breathe that moment in. So just like James, it took me a week and a half to sit down, get the setup going right without feeling like I wasn't taking advantage of this time away from the city and everything that brings. But yeah.
Thank you both so much for sharing. There's a lot of love in the chat, so jump in there and check it out. I think there's maybe a few more questions coming through, but in the interest of time, we'll move on and we'll come back to this. So thank you both so much for sharing your experience and your work with the youth. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to see what comes next for you all. Keep us posted.
All right, you got it. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Kimberly Acebo Arteche. Kimberly is an educator, cultural worker, and interdisciplinary artist. She has been awarded the Murphy-Cadogan Contemporary Art Award and has shown at East Tennessee State University and Wailoa Arts and Cultural Center. She recently finished as the production manager for We Came Here to Live by Skywatchers and as the education coordinator at Southern Exposure. She is currently with Cultivate Labs developing a Filipinx American Cultural Center in San Francisco. Kimberly is committed to collaboratively creating decolonial practices within arts institutions while creating visibility and providing resources for emerging Asian, Pacific American, and BIPOC artists. Kimberly, thanks for being here. I'll pass it off to you.
Thank you so much, Madeline. Really honored to be here with these amazing artists who are my peers, some of which I was on residency with at the same time. So just like really appreciative to be in the art community, especially through COVID, since we haven't really been gathering this whole time. Like Madeline mentioned, I'm an artist, educator, and a cultural worker, originally born on Piscataway land, also known as Maryland, and currently live on Ohlone land here in San Francisco. A huge kind of driver of my practice is studying the work of Carlos Villa and his practice also as an educator and as a community activist. And this quote, like really, it drives everything that I do from then until now. Through the practice of art, I became who I am, right? And I think for so many of us, like Black, Indigenous, and POC artists, especially immigrant artists, you know, we're not afforded the same knowing that other people are, right? Our narratives aren't the norm, right? So we have to fight a little bit more to dig into what our stories actually are. And so a lot of my process, you know, I'm trained as a photographer, but a lot of my process also digs into like family archives, right? So this is a photograph of my mother. She was recruited as a nurse to work at Howard University Hospital in the late 70s. And, you know, one of the things that happens as an immigrant, you know, they're documenting all of the great things that are happening now that they're here in America, but these photographs are romanticized, right? They don't talk about how, you know, all of the other stories that happen. You know, the photographs that they end up sending back home to their families, of course, they want to show that they're successful, that they're fine, that they're safe, right? But we know that this is not always the case. Most of the time, it's not always the case, right? So a lot of my practice has been really analyzing the photographs and trying to fill in the gaps of the stories that are missing in between, right? In this way of healing like our family narratives, and also honoring all of the experiences that our family has had, besides like being the model minority, besides, you know, being successful, besides, you know, being able to graduate from college, you know, so digging deeper into family archives, right? So one of the things that's also adjacent to my practice is realizing that although I am an immigrant, I come from an immigrant family that has a very specific history in Washington, DC, that my history as an immigrant is also related to all of the other immigrants that have come here in the past, right? The United States, American history likes to tell us that we're all very divided, right? But all of these movements built on one another, right? So it wasn't until I moved out to San Francisco for graduate school that I learned about the deep history of Filipinos in San Francisco and what they've contributed to American history, right? This work particularly is a commission for the San Francisco Arts Commission. These will be going up in October along Market Street for the Art on Market Street poster series. And this history specifically was about the AiR Hotel, the International Hotel, which was primarily senior housing for elderly Filipino and Chinese men who during the summers would work the fields, would work as migrant laborers, and then in their off time would live in San Francisco, closer to where there's food, there's services, right? And what happened in the late 70s is that this building, the International Hotel, the city wanted to tear it down to turn it into a parking lot, right? And so this was the first case of displacement, the largest case of displacement and gentrification in San Francisco at the time, right? And it was really the work of all of these activists, student activists who also came together that were working at UC Berkeley and San Francisco State during the Third World Liberation Front, all of these different pockets of communities coming together, not just Filipino communities, but Asian American, the Black Panthers came, right? A lot of the youth and student organizers who were organizing with the United Farm Workers were also coming to coalesce together in solidarity to support these elderly men from being displaced and from being evicted. Unfortunately, they were evicted, but housing rights and low income housing in San Francisco would not have existed if it were not for this movement, right? And although it is most of the history, you'll find a lot of like men leading the organizing. There was a lot of women also whose stories are not told. So I have been working with the International Hotel Manila Town Foundation to also highlight the stories of the women whose work really goes unnoticed, right? So here, the image on the left there are two women that are holding an original photograph of the I-Hotel building. On the left is Annie Panlibutan Barnes, and she's the daughter of one of the original organizers who I'll talk about in a minute. And she is currently now a resident at the resurrected I-Hotel. And then holding the image on the right is Dr. Estella Habal, who was one of the student organizers during the time and also went on to get her PhD and write the book about this history. The image on the right is Annie's mother, Asuncion Panlibutan, who, when she realized that, of course, they were going to get evicted because they just didn't have enough influence on what could happen, she decided to start organizing care homes so that the elders could find somewhere to live when they were eventually evicted. And so Asuncion, she organized those homes for 35, almost 40 years up until she died in 2011. So that's one project that's like going up. Again, like kind of going into these stories that we ignore, right? There's always so many things happening that we forget these stories. I'll skip this next slide and I'll talk about this work. This work was really inspired by these dresses, right? For a lot of Filipino women, and I'm sure it's also popular in other cultures as well, where we wear these things called dusters, right? So they're dresses, they're very colorful. You know, the patterns come from all over the world. This one specifically is like a batik pattern. And so kind of going back to analyzing family archives, I just could not get the image of these, like my mother and my aunts and my grandmothers wearing these dresses, right? A lot of the photographs are from my mom's province in Batangas, and the landscapes are very brown, very green, right? And you'll just see this like tiny brown woman wearing these beautiful dresses as if they're kind of, you know, just really sticking out. And so I had collected a lot of these dresses from my aunts', like, you know, the ones that they didn't want anymore. They're like, oh, they have oil stains on them because they were cooking in them. They have like hair dye on them. And I also have a background as a dancer, as a performance artist. So I'd like wear these dresses to kind of invoke like their experiences, right? And going back to, you know, my mom being a nurse in the late 70s, for some reason, one of the strongest experiences that like I recalled while I was wearing them was hearing all of the things, like the discrimination that my mom experienced in the workplace, right? You know, of being literally a brown woman, like a person of color in all of these like white hospital spaces, and her really only being seen as color, right? And not really seen as like a full human, despite the fact that she spoke English well, but even when hearing her like very mild accent, people would dismiss her right away and dismiss it as like, oh, well, you know, you don't have a degree from an American school, so there's no way that you can take care of me well enough, right? But we know that there's like a huge industry of like Filipino Americans in nursing, in hospitals, all across the US, right? So doing this work really helped me tap into like, okay, this is also very similar to my experience in art spaces, right? I very often feel like I'm like the diversity checkbox, right? Of, okay, we got a brown person in the studio space. And I often felt like I was literally just there as color, like taking up space as color. So a lot of these works, I created these from 2016 to 2018, where I was like photographing myself, and then, you know, removing my actual body from the images as a way to like really question like who sees me? Do I even see myself sometimes, right? Or are we just taking up space in this way? And I think even now it's like still very relevant. You know, the discourse around this doesn't really change very much in America. This is an image, an installation image from the solo show that I did in 2019. I'm also very particular about making sure the wall spaces are not just white, because you know, I didn't grow up in like white homes. So I'm very intentional about painting the walls skin tones, very skin tones. And then the last thing that I want to show, you know, this is kind of a conversation that is like just starting to happen on a national level, right? There's a quote here from Fernando Amorsolo about ideal Filipino women. It's very loaded, right? Also the Philippines being a colony, you know, like a part of like the American empire at some point, our gendered expectations also align with nationalism, align with supporting the collective, right? About being submissive to the collective, right? And unfortunately, while I was at Caldera, it was the same time that the mass shooting in Atlanta happened, right? So I had a lot of these questions of like, God, like I have had so many experiences like as an Asian woman with all of these projections of being submissive and also being socialized to act that way and behave that way as a way to assimilate and as a way to succeed, right? Just like work hard, keep my head down, like don't really get noticed, right? And so, you know, I had a lot of rage and anger while that was happening. And I like didn't really intend on making this work while I was there, but it came out, right? And so the text in the background is in Tagalog, taken from these like nationalistic songs, like traditional nationalistic songs in the Philippines called kundiman, which have this tone of, they talk about like your love, right? The woman that you love, but it's also this like double entendre of, you're also talking about your country. Like I will die for my love, I will die for my country, in this way that women are also coded to be like, oh, she's so pure-hearted, she's so loyal, right? And so I'm still kind of like working out what this work is, but this was the most recent thing that I've made, and I'm kind of still editing through some of the things. And yeah, that was the last thing that I wanted to leave you all with during my AiR Share presentation here. Again, I'm like, just like really grateful for my time at Caldera and appreciative for all of you for listening.
Thank you so much for sharing, Kimberly. Really powerful. Are there any questions from the audience? We can also come back. I know questions don't always pop up right in the moment. Okay, so we'll move on to our last presentation, and then again at the end we'll have a few minutes for questions for any of the presenters tonight. So next we have Karima Takur, an interdisciplinary artist born and raised in New Delhi. She works with histories, narratives, and multitudinous realities of assimilation, alienation, and collectivism. She is currently stationed in Portland, Oregon, and works as an associate professor of interaction, media, and graphic design at Western Oregon University. Her work has received support from organizations like the Ford Family Foundation, Oregon Arts Commission, Portland Institute for Contemporary Art, Regional Arts and Culture Council, and Open Signal. And I will pass it over to Garima.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm Karima Takur. First of all, thank you. Caldera was so awesome. I think it was really needed at that time. And I made work that I have been stuck with. So that was really helpful. And also it was helpful in ways that I forgot what space can do to you. Especially when I came to Caldera, India was getting like a big hike. And I was just like, I have had like 11 deaths in the last 2 years and COVID members. And I was sort of honestly struggling with making a lot of work. Like I didn't make work in 2020, which is, you know, was sort of like super weird. So I was really surprised that Caldera was awesome. I sort of did so I'll share 2 projects with all of you, 2 very different projects. One is deeply Please, if anybody is offended, put it in the chat. A very humor-based work. I do a lot of interactive work, and I give a lot of open source interactive storytelling workshops to youth and peer-to-peer. So I'll show you one interactive work, and I'll show you one which is really super analog-based work, which was really awesome to work at in Caldera. So I will share my screen. One second. Well, hello, my name is Garima. I do want to take a moment to remember that we are living on the land of Multnomah, Vasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Bounds of Chinook, Tualatin, Colapia, and Malala people. Well, two things that I'll talk to you about is my artistic research, which is basically really based in feminist groundings, and that is sort of working within third world feminism and Black feminism praxis and counter structures and collaboration. Most of my work is deeply embedded in collaboration. I do not understand work that's sort of like done at a very individual level personally. I was born and brought up in India. This is my family and all my favorite women. And my dear dad. So that's me, very young. The first thing that we'll talk about mostly is I like to acknowledge my mother as a citation a lot. She is really deeply present in my work, something that I critique and something that I also love. This is her on the left on my last trip to India, and this is her also on the right, sort of like, she's this like really basis of what I question in the world. You know, she's somebody who deeply holds patriarchy, but she's also somebody who I deeply understand her context and what she grew up in. And we both grew up in a severely colonial hangover in India. So it's just like sort of that weird relationship where I keep going back to James Baldwin's quote of, I love America the most, that's why I critique it the most. So it's sort of like that relationship, and through that I sort of question the world as well. So the first work that I want to show you is a collaboration with Shrida Town. I have a new show coming up, and before you enter the show, you enter into this service. You can't actually get into the show. I'm showing you two work in progresses that I did at Caldera basically. So this is, I'm gonna click on it. I hope you all can see it. The show is called We Are Out of Control, and it comes from Jane Cortez's song, We're Out of Control. Jane Cortez is a feminist writer and poet, and most of the work is based in leisure de-imperial gallivanting. So we were thinking a lot about the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean, and sort of like what the ocean holds. But basically the work, because it's 2021, we really needed some humor. So the work started with me thinking about Bengal famine, and I'll play the website. And if anybody in the audience or panelist could tell me what they want to select. So this is more of an interactive based form, and you take this form before you go into the show. And it's basically a joke, but the whole form is based on a USCIS website, which is basically a visa website. So how you enter in the show. So I'll proceed. You can enter your fake name. I have thought about the Imperial today. And then maybe I will put a Gallivanter here. And then you proceed. And the disclaimer says we have no desire to know your true identity, but we do want to know your answers will be analyzed by the artist officials of We Are Out of Control and used in future art consensus. By proceeding, you agree to the terms. And then you proceed. If you knowingly or willfully, all of this language is basically taken from visa form languages, and we've like sort of like changed it. If you knowingly or willfully misrepresent or omit material, personal fact, or submit a false truth and information with this form, we may or may not deny your entry to the show. In addition, you may or not face serious penalty. I will just say yes. You proceed. It says the first two questions are designed to identify your ethnicity and race. And of course it says BIPOC ethnicity and I don't see color. It sort of like shifts between that. So it's an 8-step authentication process. And it says, are you or do you like bland meat? So I would click no. Proceed. Step, are you with Mayo-Saxon or ALE Nordic or non-Mayo-Saxon and ALE Nordic? And we proceed. Let me select non-Mayo, and then a Mayo commercial comes up.
Lovely shower.
Yes, and this dip you brought is delicious.
We made it with Kraft real mayonnaise.
I thought you always use that other mayonnaise.
We discovered Kraft looks creamier. It's specially blended over 3,000 times.
It sure makes this dip taste creamy.
And another gift from Aunt Martha and Aunt Harriet.
Harriet.
Oh, she's got to learn sometime.
Creamy Kraft Real Mayonnaise. And now Kraft Light Reduced Calorie Mayonnaise. Creamy taste with half the fat.
And then you proceed. It says, do you or your next of kin own land? Yes, we are Mayo-Saxons. Yes, but we are not Mayo-Saxons. Yes, no, even though we are Mayo-Saxons, and no, and other, and I'll just put that. Are we out of control? No, or yes, I don't know. I'll proceed though, I have to explain. And then you have to, in step 5A, you have to do LOL or SMH, which is, you see 3 different medias that a lot of this work is inspired from. So artists in the diaspora, home is mango leaves rustling in a monsoon, a sound drowning in assimilation, mama, why did you crush my tongue? Artists in the origin country, hello, we are Vomit Revolt and we love death metal. So it sort of like talks, it also like critiques diaspora art in some ways when we're constantly thinking about or stuck in a nostalgic version of our own space. So it comes back to that. This is one of my favorite.
We make plans at 2 and you actually come at 2. do you like disappointment? Is that your goal in life? When you say 1, I will spend the whole week knowing we're meeting at 4. What will it take for me to show up on time? A miracle. A damn miracle. Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? I will come in catwalking.
And this is the most common national celebration on earth is actually a holiday shared by 65 different countries on different days in each country on an annual basis, averaging out to being celebrated somewhere on the planet once every 6 days, independence from British. So basically like the whole work is based in a colonial hangover and what does it mean to be in a commonwealth, which is, you know, such a opposite term. So then here you say, have you ever incited, called for, committed, assisted, helped with, or otherwise participated in any of the following? Amazon Prime, leisure imperialist gallivanting, limiting or denying a personal ability to exercise rage against bland meat, and intentionally and severely read Jane Cortez. And you can select all of these. And when you click on this one,
here is my brain of hot sauce, my tobacco teeth, my mattress of bed bug tongue.
And then you proceed the same back. Will you ever incite, call for, commit, assist, help with, or otherwise participate in any of the following? Land back, Africa for Africans, ripping up ineffective lawn signs, intentionally and severely reading Jane Cortez. And I select yes, 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 and then yes.
And as long as we act as silly and mediocre and corrupt and greedy and repressed as we are programmed to act, and don't explode and globalize that explosion into a redistribution of all there is to redistribute, then everything remains what it is. And as long as we act as silly and mediocre and
then her poems come in. And then you finally basically end up filling the form, but I understand I'm running out of time. So I'll show you the second work. And I'm happy to send anybody a link if anybody is interested in filling up the form before you come to the show or don't come to the show. We will have all the data. Then in the end, it basically just say something nice, and then you submit it. And then the other piece of work that I did at Caldera was very different. I did a series, I started really thinking about a feminist praxis and family when I was in Caldera, and I had some time. So I started sort of creating these photographs that I did 10 years ago. So I started writing these postcards and really, really long letters to people. So I did like 20 of them while I was at Caldera, and I'll read some of the photographs to you. So this is a photograph of us yelling from our roofs, enacting the Sholay scene, so drunk. Here it says, this is a photograph of us dancing on the song Illegal Weapon. I'm doing the Govinda step, pushing my pelvis across the room, skidding. You're laughing so hard. This is a photograph of us laying next to the river, close to your house in Kolkata. The water is too muddy and we are sweating like crazy, being lizards on the top of each other. Then this is a photograph of us dancing, high on wellness formula, fast car is playing. I closed my eyes and winked at you. So these are like a series of photographs that I sent, which was text-based. And it's sort of like, like I was really thinking about the memory, and especially because we're stuck. I haven't gone home in 2.5 years. And it was the moment I was also feeling really, really emotional. So I started thinking about how much I stand on this ground because of all these women in my life that I just sort of forget. And it was in these letters where I wanted to cite them, and I wanted to like take a moment of what it is to use citation as a praxis, citation as something that your grandmother said, citation as what our ancestors say. So I sort of like started thinking about these letters and creating images with people who are very, very close to me. So this is a photograph of us laughing so hard. We are meeting in person for the very first time. And this is a photograph of us laying on the footpath, sprawled with little cups of you-know-what and biscuit. The sun is, of course, directly in my face, and you're in the shade. So these just continue, and the letters are sort of personal, so I'm not gonna like go into reading them, but this was a series of work, and this one I'll read as the end. This is a photograph of us standing still in the middle of a warm purple blue crater. I can't swim now. And that's it. That's my deal.
Thank you. There's so much here. I want more time. I can't believe we're already at 6:30. Your work is so inspiring. So we do have a question. If folks have time, maybe we can just keep our answers pretty brief, but what were the challenges and benefits of working in semi-isolation? And then maybe a two-part question: why and are residencies like this important to support or be part of?
Is this for all of us?
This is for anyone, yeah.
Okay, no, go ahead, Kimberly.
Yeah, I think it was either James and or Devonte that mentioned it earlier, like talking about this space as being a healing space. I think also as artists, we're very empathic, because we're transforming all of our emotions, our experiences into things, right? And so it's really easy for us to absorb a lot of things, right? So particularly working in isolation for me was great because I could just quiet everything down. And especially like not having that much access to internet and social media was really great because I could just slow down and really just tap into what I was feeling, like what I was thinking, all of those different things. So yeah, it was a great experience. I'll just leave my answer at that.
I think even though we've been sort of, I live alone but I share a studio, and we've been in, kind of a space of like not meeting so many people. I won't say isolation. But I think at Caldera, the space did something. I just like this, but I was in the studio. The first day was hard, and my brain just started running in a way that I don't experience on a daily basis. And I didn't realize, like, that's how kind of I feel when I'm going back home. My energy is very different, and I could feel more somatic. I could be more in my body and just really focus. And I could sleep, which was kind of awesome. So I think it gave me space, and I felt very privileged to be there. The space is extremely luxurious. In some ways, it was also very uncomfortable, but I think because luxury is like so, daunting at the same time. But I'm always in awe of just like this moment where you can see the sky, and it's so wide, and your imagination is not policed in something that you grew up in. And that was really, really helpful. I could just be okay with being emotional, which was really great.
And I'll answer on, why are these types of programs important? For TS and I especially, we've always wanted to give the keys or the juice or the motivation or the opportunity to young artists or new emerging artists. We want them to grow and learn faster than we did. We had to push and fight and shove for opportunity, which was kind of synonymous with music at that point, in the times that we got into music. And we came up with, both of us having that same type of mentality that we just want to, for our industry to grow, we need to give more opportunity sooner. We want higher competition in our own cities, in our own regions, in our own genres, so that it lifts up that level of art. So Caldera for us gave an opportunity for Noah and Moses, 18 and 20, to join with us. So we were able to, and they were both two artists that have put in a lot of work too, though. They earned it. Noah produces for us. Moses put out his own album, his senior year of high school. So while, finishing school. So, hey, there they are right here. There's Noah. But they were there with us. This is part of our collective. We consider ourselves family, but really wanted to show our young ones that you put in this work and you have this fire in your heart, that there's opportunity out there that will blow your minds, and it blew all of our minds to be, like you guys said, the space does something to your creative spirit. It really it awed us. And it's these programs are important to show even artists that are a little bit more seasoned, like TS and I. This was our first time being in a residency in a space like that as well. So it helped us reinvigorate that fire within ourselves, while at the same time paying that forward to our young artists doing the same. So it was supremely powerful.
Yeah, I was just telling Noah not too long ago, like, whatever you need, I got you. And that's including opportunities like this, where we were able to all come together in that space. That space is important because, for one, as artists, we live in our heads literally every day of our lives. So while people say, "Oh, you think before you talk," like, no, we really think. So when you're in a wide open space like that and you're not surrounded by things that you're used to, you think a little differently. In that comes a different type of artistry, so it all just goes back to opportunities. As artists, if we can get opportunities to be in a different space, to feel something different, for example, I brought back, and James knows this, I went through what he calls my spiritual journey while I was there. And I brought back the power of manifestation. And I seen that while I was there. So that was only possible because I was able to get away and disconnect from so many things that I'm used to in that space that's literally built for creativity. That's why things like Caldera are important, and especially important to artists like ourselves, because we do deal with the youth that don't know these things exist. Now they do, because they're on our Instagram, because they're on our Facebook, because we take that experience with us and we're able to share it with the rest of the world. Now it brings a different type of hope, because they know that, yo, I can get there one day. You know, he comes from the same place that I come from. He looks like me. It's possible now. That's why I think Caldera is mad important to me.
Amazing words to end on. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to have Katie take us out for the night.
Wow, what an honor to host all of you incredible artists. I can tell from the chat and how you have affected people, and I'll speak for myself. I'm so filled up. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your work, your process, letting us know how the experience was. I really want to thank you. And I want to thank everyone who attended tonight. And this was recorded, as Madeline told us, so we'll be able to hear it and see it again. And I hope that we have a long, great relationship with you all as our Caldera community. And then I wanted to remind everyone that this is the first of 2 events. So we're going to have another AiR Share on Tuesday, May 27th, when we'll hear from Tavares Black Monster, we'll hear from Paul Susi, and we'll hear from Subhashini Ganesan. And if you want to sign up for our newsletter so you don't miss anything, and follow us on social media, both Instagram and Facebook, you can get all your reminders there. So keep in touch. We want to see both artists, audience, and attendees. We have a lot more in store for the year. So thank you, and have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
My pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you. Thank you for the beautiful connection.